Welcome to Why Stuff Happens. I am Hope. Let's find out together.
Let's dive in.
Right now, your brain is, it's actually wired to reward you for inflicting pain on yourself.
It sounds totally backwards, I know.
Right. But if you've ever gotten a mosquito bite, you know exactly what I mean. You notice that tiny little raised bump on your arm?
Oh yeah, the classic red bug.
And you tell yourself, I'm not going to scratch it, I can ignore this.
But you can't.
No. Within seconds, it just becomes this physical demand. So you cave, you scratch it, and for like a few fleeting seconds, it feels like pure serotonin-laced heaven.
It really does.
Yeah.
But as we found out in today's deep dive, that feeling of relief is actually a massive neurological trap.
It is a total scam. So
Really?
welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today we're answering the central, honestly maddening question. Why do these microscopic bumps completely hijack our brains and our self-control?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
We've got a really fascinating stack of sources to pull from for this. We're looking at entomology papers on insect biomechanics, some immunology research from the National Institutes of Health, and medical reviews covering the actual neurobiology of itching.
Yeah, so our mission today is to essentially trace a single mosquito bite. We're going to follow it from the exact moment of landing, through the crazy chemical sabotage happening right under your skin, into the trap of that itch-scratch cycle, and finally, look at how to get some real relief.
Because it really is a remarkable intersection of sciences. I mean, you've got biomechanical warfare, immune system manipulation, and these localized neurological loops all happening within a single millimeter of your skin.
It's wild.
Yeah.
But to understand the reaction, we have to start with the perpetrator. And I have to admit, looking through the entomology research, I realized I had a totally fundamental misunderstanding of what a mosquito bite even is.
Oh, really? What did you think it was?
Well, I always just pictured like a tiny hollow needle poking into the skin, just a simple syringe. But the scanning electron microscope images in these papers completely ruined that illusion for me.
Oh, yeah. It is not a simple needle, not even close.
No.
First off, it's important to clarify that only female mosquitoes bite. They need the protein and iron from a blood meal to develop their eggs.
Right, whereas the males just sort of politely drink plant nectar.
Exactly. So when a female lands, she deploys this highly specialized 6-part toolkit. It's called a fascicle. Now, to the naked eye, her mouth part looks like a single straw. But under a microscope, it's this whole bundle of tools inside a protective sheath.
And the mechanics are terrifyingly impressive. So the sheath bends back and the papers break down these 6 distinct tools she uses. First, she has 2 serrated blades.
Literally microscopic saws.
Yeah, saws to cut through your skin. Then she has 2 sharp anchors that basically grip the open tissue to hold her firmly in place.
Right, so she doesn't get knocked off.
Exactly. And once the skin is open and she's anchored, this flexible central tube blindly probes around deep inside your tissue until it strikes a blood vessel.
And that acts as the actual straw.
Right. And right alongside that straw is a second tube, which is just constantly pumping her saliva into the wound.
And the biomechanical efficiency of all this is what really stands out in the literature. Because human skin is actually surprisingly tough for an insect of that size to penetrate.
Totally.
So, to reduce the physical force she needs to puncture the tissue, that entire bundle of saws and tubes actually vibrates.
Yeah, at around 30 hertz, which is, when I read that, it completely reframed the whole thing for me. It's less like a syringe and way more like a microscopic electric carving knife.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
But that immediately made me wonder, if this insect is literally sawing into my arm with vibrating serrated blades, why on earth don't I feel it happening immediately?
Right.
Like, I only ever noticed the bite long after she's flown away.
Well, that is the perfect question. And the secret lies entirely in that second tube you mentioned, the one pumping saliva into the wound while she feeds.
The spit tube.
The spit tube, exactly. Mosquito saliva is this incredibly complex chemical cocktail. It actually contains a localized anesthetic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ah.
That numbing agent is why your nerve endings are completely oblivious to the fact that you're being sawed into.
It's so sneaky.
But she isn't just numbing the area. The saliva also contains powerful anticoagulants.
Right, to stop the blood from clotting so she can just drink freely.
Yep. And it also contains vasodilators. These are specific proteins, like one called cytokines, that actually force your local blood vessels to open up wider. It basically diverts more blood flow directly to the exact site where she's feeding.
Okay, but our bodies don't just act as passive buffets, right? Like, we have security systems in the skin.
We do, yeah. Your skin is packed with resident immune cells called macrophages. They act kind of like border patrol.
Just constantly scanning for trouble.
Exactly. They use these specialized molecular sensors, toll-like receptors, to scan the environment. And the moment they detect the foreign proteins in that mosquito saliva, they sound the alarm.
They release these chemical sirens, right? Chemokines.
Right. And those chemokines signal the blood vessels to recruit an army of white blood cells to rush to the breach.
But this is where the NIH research gets incredibly devious because the mosquito actually anticipates this immune response.
Oh, totally.
The sources show that the saliva actively manipulates our immune system upon contact. It's like, okay, it's like a burglar breaking into your house, but they bring a numbing spray so you don't wake up, and then they drop a chemical that confuses your guard dogs into having an allergic reaction instead of actually biting the intruder.
That is a great analogy, because the saliva actively suppresses your body's antiviral defense systems, what we call the Th1 response, and simultaneously pushes your immune system into an allergic Th2 response.
So instead of attacking a potential virus, the guard dogs just start sneezing.
Exactly. And the biological implications of that manipulation are massive, because by forcing your body into an allergic response rather than an antiviral one, the mosquito creates this localized safe zone in your skin.
Which is bad news if they're carrying something.
Very bad news. If that mosquito happens to be carrying a pathogen like dengue or Zika or West Nile virus, that suppressed environment makes it significantly easier for the virus to replicate before your body even realizes what's happening. The white blood cells that rush in, because they're disoriented by the allergic signaling, can actually become infected themselves. They basically offer the virus a free ride into your lymphatic system.
That is genuinely terrifying. So, okay, the mosquito drops this chemical smoke bomb, steals the blood, and flies away. The burglar is gone, but the alarm system in the house is still just blaring.
Yep, the immune system is panicking.
So how do we get from that microscopic cellular traffic jam to the giant, puffy, itchy bump on my ankle?
The bridge between the alarm and the physical bump is a chemical called histamine.
Ah, great.
When your immune system detects the saliva, these specialized cells in your tissue called mast cells act kind of like cellular grenades.
Just packed full of inflammatory chemicals.
Exactly. Upon detecting the foreign spit, these mast cells detonate, and they flood the surrounding tissue with histamine.
And the histamine's job is basically to trigger a localized flood response, right?
That's it.
Because I read that it causes the local blood vessels to dilate even further and become highly permeable. Like the vessel walls literally get leaky.
They do. They start seeping blood plasma out into the surrounding skin tissue. And that fluid buildup from the leaky vessels is exactly what creates the red, puffy, raised bump.
The classic mosquito bite look.
Right. Medically, it's known as a wheal and flare reaction. The wheal is the raised, fluid-filled bump, and the flare is the red ring of inflammation around it.
Okay, so the mosquito doesn't actually cause the bump at all.
No, not at all. The physical swelling is 100% a product of your own body aggressively overreacting to the leftover spit.
Just throwing this chaotic, leaky alarm bell party to bring in repair cells, and the side effect is this itchy balloon under the skin.
Yep. But the swelling is only half the misery. Because histamine doesn't just make the vessels leak, it also interacts directly with our nervous system.
Which brings us to the itch.
Right. As the histamine floods the tissue, it physically binds to specific receptors, H1 and H4 receptors, on these slow-conducting sensory nerves in your skin.
The C fiber nerves.
Exactly. These nerves are specifically tuned to detect irritants. When the histamine binds to them, they fire this slow, steady signal up your spinal cord and into your brain.
And your brain translates that chemical flood into the conscious sensation of an itch.
Which is just the worst.
It really is, because since my brain is screaming at me to itch, it feels like scratching is what I'm literally supposed to do. It feels like an instu.
It does. And scratching a fresh bite undeniably feels amazing.
So satisfying.
But the medical reviews are very clear on this. Scratching is a trap. It's the absolute worst thing you can do because it actively hacks your spinal cord.
Okay, explain that, because this neurobiology part is crazy.
So to understand the trap, you have to look at the different speeds of our nervous system. When you scratch a bite, you are applying noxious pressure and mild pain to the skin.
Right.
You're activating completely different nerve endings, the pain receptors. And the trick here is that pain signals travel along much faster neural highways than itch signals do.
Oh, so the mild pain from your fingernails literally outruns the itch signal to the brain.
It outruns it and it actually blocks it. When those fast pain signals reach your spinal cord, They trigger the release of inhibitory neurotransmitters like GABA and glycine.
Okay.
These chemicals act like a physical roadblock in your spinal cord. They temporarily shut down the slow-moving itch signals so they never even reach your brain. Your brain only registers the mild, relieving pain of the scratch.
And because you successfully remove the annoying itch stimulus, your brain rewards you with a hit of serotonin.
Exactly. Which is why it feels genuinely pleasurable.
But there is a massive downside, right? Because the sources heavily warn against this.
A huge downside. When you scratch, you are physically breaking the epidermal skin barrier. You're damaging the tissue.
Right.
And that physical trauma causes those mast cells to panic all over again. They detect the damage and release an even bigger wave of histamine. Plus, the trauma forces your local nerves to release their own inflammatory chemicals.
Neurogenic inflammation.
Yes. So you're creating a vicious feedback loop. You apply pain to block the itch, but the physical act of applying pain creates way more inflammation.
So the moment you stop scratching and that mild pain fades.
The roadblock in your spinal cord lifts. And now, the itch signal waiting behind it is twice as strong as it was before you scratched.
Wow. So scratching is basically hitting a temporary mute button on the itch by playing a much louder pain sound. But by doing that, we accidentally turn the actual volume dial up to a 10 for when the mute button wears off.
That is exactly what happens. It's
Hey.
a biological scam.
It totally is. Okay, so if scratching is a scam that just damages the skin, what are we actually supposed to do? Because looking at the sources, I noticed there's a huge variance in how people even react. Like some people get a tiny dot and others swell up instantly.
Yeah, reactions vary wildly. And it mostly comes down to genetics and your lifetime exposure history.
Which explains why babies and young children often look like they're having these severe allergic reactions to a single bite.
Right, because entomologists mapped this out using something called the Mellanby progression. It outlines 5 distinct stages of human desensitization to mosquito bites over our lives.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, in stage 1, you've never been bitten by a specific species before. Your immune system has no antibodies for that specific saliva. So initially, there might be no reaction at all.
But then you get bit a few more times.
Exactly. The body encounters the saliva more frequently, and it enters the middle stages. The immune system starts producing antibodies, resulting in these intense, delayed reactions and eventually immediate, large inflammatory responses.
Which is peak sensitivity.
Right. And children are often in these middle stages, which is why their immune systems throw such massive alarms.
But the silver lining here is stage 5. Because the clinical data shows that if you are bitten enough times by the exact same species of mosquito over many years, your immune system can eventually reach a state of total tolerance.
It's true. It basically realizes the saliva isn't an existential threat and just stops reacting entirely. You get bitten, and absolutely nothing happens.
So you're saying if I just let myself get bitten thousands of times, I might become immune?
I mean, technically, yes, but
Yeah, no, that is way too high a price to pay. I am not volunteering to be a mosquito buffet. Give me the real, safe remedies.
fair enough. Well, the very first step the medical literature universally recommends is incredibly simple.
What?
Wash the bite with plain soap and water.
Really? Just soap and water?
Just soap and water. It serves 2 crucial functions. First, it physically removes any residual mosquito saliva left on the surface of the skin.
Oh, to stop it from irritating the wound further.
Right. And second, it cleanses the microabrasions you've probably already caused by scratching, which significantly lowers the risk of getting a secondary bacterial infection.
Okay, that makes sense. And after washing it, temperature manipulation seems to be the most effective immediate relief.
It is very effective.
The sources heavily advocate for applying an ice pack for about 10 minutes. And I loved the mechanism behind this because it solves 2 problems at once. The physical cold slows down those slow C-fiber nerves, numbing the itch signal before it reaches the spine.
Exactly.
And at the same time, the cold physically forces the local blood vessels to constrict, which shuts off that leaky fluid causing all the swelling.
It's a great 2-for-1 solution. But you can also alter the chemical environment of the skin itself. The CDC actually suggests a really simple home remedy of baking soda paste.
Oh, interesting. Just baking soda and water?
Yeah, mix a tablespoon of baking soda with just enough water to form a paste and leave it on the bite for 10 minutes. The alkalinity of the baking soda helps neutralize the acidic, inflammatory environment your immune system just created.
And obviously over-the-counter options like topical antihistamines or hydrocortisone work too, right?
Right. They take a more direct route by binding to the histamine receptors themselves, basically blocking the chemical from talking to your nerves.
And if you're someone who just scratches in your sleep and can't help it, The sources suggest sticky physical barriers, like applying a dab of raw honey or a thick oatmeal paste.
Yes, oatmeal has natural anti-irritant compounds, and the stickiness just physically deters you from scratching. It's a physical reminder to keep your hands off.
Okay, but we should clarify, those remedies are for standard reactions. The medical sources draw a very firm line between a standard bite and a condition known as Skeeter syndrome.
Yes, that is an important distinction. Skeeter syndrome is a true, large, local allergic reaction to the polypeptides in mosquito saliva. It goes way beyond a typical itchy bump.
The defining characteristics are the sheer size and the heat, right?
Exactly. If a bite swells to larger than 5 centimeters in diameter, sometimes taking up an entire forearm or ankle, and feels noticeably hot and hard to the touch within just a few hours, that is likely Skeeter syndrome.
And it can even trigger a low-grade fever, which is scary because that makes it look super similar to a severe skin infection.
It does. But distinguishing between Skeeter syndrome and a bacterial infection is critical. The key differentiator is time.
How so?
Well, Skeeter syndrome is an immediate aggressive immune response. It peaks rapidly, usually within the first 24 to 48 hours. A bacterial infection happens because you broke the skin by scratching and introduced external bacteria.
And infections take time to incubate.
Right. So an infection will start getting progressively worse and more painful after that 48-hour mark, whereas the allergic reaction will typically start to subside.
And the sources are incredibly clear on the warning signs of an infection. Oozing pus, increasing localized pain, or red streaks spreading outward from the bite.
Those red streaks are the definitive warning sign that an infection is spreading into your lymphatic system. You need to see a doctor.
Absolutely.
And while we're on severe reactions, we have to mention that while full-body anaphylaxis is exceedingly rare with mosquito bites, it is possible. Any signs of throat swelling, severe dizziness, or difficulty breathing require immediate emergency services.
Good to know. And one more safety rule from the sources: never apply heat therapies or harsh chemicals if you have already scratched the skin open. It will just exacerbate the tissue damage.
Exactly. Keep it clean and cool.
All right, before we wrap up, we have to address a massive myth that always circulates during summer.
Oh, I bet I know which one.
Right. Everyone has that one friend who just gets devoured by mosquitoes while everyone else is perfectly fine. And they always say, oh, mosquitoes just like my sweet blood, or they bite everyone equally, you just complain more.
Yeah, no. Looking at the entomology data, they absolutely do not bite equally. And the sweet blood concept is a complete fabrication.
Thank you.
Mosquitoes don't even have the biological capacity to taste the sugar content of your blood before they bite you.
So how are they choosing their victims?
Their hunting mechanism relies entirely on this highly sophisticated array of thermal and chemical sensors. They are tracking specific environmental exhaust.
They're flying chemical trackers, and the first thing they lock onto is carbon dioxide, right?
Yep. Every time you exhale, you leave a plume of CO2. The heavier you breathe, like if you're exercising, the larger your invisible footprint becomes.
But they also track specific compounds in our sweat.
Right, primarily lactic acid, uric acid, and ammonia. And the concentration of those compounds in your sweat is determined by your genetics and your unique skin microbiome.
So if your natural exhaust has high levels of lactic acid, you genuinely are a chemical magnet for them.
You really are.
But the visual and dietary triggers were what surprised me the most. Mosquitoes hunt by visual contrast.
Yes. Clinical studies consistently show they are drawn to people wearing dark, bold colors like black, dark blue, or red.
Because it creates a stark silhouette against the horizon.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the beer study.
Oh, man, the beer study. This one hurt.
It's a fascinating piece of behavioral entomology, though. Researchers found that consuming even a single serving of beer significantly increases a person's attractiveness to mosquitoes.
Because the alcohol slightly elevates your baseline body temperature, making you a brighter thermal target, and it alters the chemical composition of your sweat in a way they just find irresistible.
Yep.
So, my absolute favorite summer activity, drinking a cold beer on a dimly lit patio, wearing a dark t-shirt right after a sweaty workout, is scientifically proven to be the ultimate dinner bell for every mosquito in a 1-mile radius.
I mean, you are mathematically optimizing yourself as a target. High CO2, optimal thermal radiation, chemical attractants, and high contrast visual cues. You're doing everything wrong.
I am literally doing everything wrong. I'm going to have to rethink my entire summer routine.
Probably a good idea.
Well, we have covered a massive amount of microscopic ground today, so let's do a quick recap of the chaos.
Let's do it.
A female mosquito uses a vibrating 6-part biological toolkit to saw into your skin. She pumps in an anesthetic, immune-manipulating saliva to steal your blood and provide cover for potential viruses. Your local immune cells detect this breach and totally panic, detonating mast cells that flood the area with histamine.
And that histamine forces your blood vessels to leak fluid, creating the swollen bump, while simultaneously binding to your nerves to send that itch signal to your brain.
And scratching that itch is a neurological scam. It uses pain to temporarily block the itch signal, but breaks the skin, triggering more histamine and guaranteeing the itch comes back worse.
Exactly.
So, to directly answer the question we started with, why do mosquito bites itch? They itch because your immune system throws a chaotic, leaky, chemical alarm bell party to fight off the mosquito's spit, and your sensory nerves are just caught in the crossfire.
The mechanism is deeply frustrating. But understanding the biological warfare of that saliva is actually leading to some incredible medical breakthroughs.
Wait, really? Like what?
Well, we spend so much time and money trying to deter the mosquito itself, right? With sprays and nets. But researchers at the NIH are exploring a completely different paradigm right now. They're testing vaccines directed not at the viruses the mosquitoes carry, but against the mosquito saliva itself.
Wait, they're trying to vaccinate humans against the mosquito spit.
Precisely. Because we know the saliva actively suppresses the immune system to create a safe harbor for viruses to replicate.
Right.
So, if a vaccine can train the human immune system to instantly recognize and neutralize those salivary proteins the moment they're injected, they can strip away that protective environment.
Oh, wow. So by neutralizing the saliva, you starve the virus of its foothold.
Exactly. You could prevent diseases like dengue or Zika from ever establishing an infection. One single vaccine against the saliva could theoretically protect against multiple different mosquito-borne pathogens.
That is an incredible way to flip the script on millions of years of evolutionary warfare.
It really is. Science is pretty amazing.
It is. So the next time you find yourself staring down a fresh bite, just remember the sheer, staggering complexity of the mechanics happening inside that tiny little bump. But more importantly, I encourage you to resist the neurological scam. Put down the scratching hand, go grab an ice pack and some baking soda, and let the science do the heavy lifting. We will catch you on the next deep dive into life's everyday mysteries.